As far back as I can remember, I've always been a cinephile. From the moment I ran out of the room when I first saw velociraptors in Jurassic Park, I have loved the magic and wonder of film. One of my all-time favorite filmmakers is Akira Kurosawa. Although, like many in my generation, I did not see my first Kurosawa film until my first film studies course in college. And while the film my professor chose as an introduction to Kurosawa's work is not my favorite Kurosawa film, it is one that had an enormous impact on the history of film, storytelling, psychology, and law. Rashomon. The film opens with three men, a priest, a commoner, and a woodcutter, taking shelter from a storm under the Rashomon gate in Kyoto. The woodcutter and the priest are discussing the story of how the woodcutter found the body of a slain samurai in the forest 3 days prior. A bandit was accused of murdering the samurai and assaulting the samurai's wife. The woodcutter, the priest, the samurai's wife, the bandit, and even the ghost of the samurai were summoned at a trial. Kurosawa gives us 4 versions of the same series of events through the eyes of the woodcutter, the bandit, the woman, and the spirit of the husband, each retelling markedly different from the others. The film ends rather ambiguously without a clear resolution of what actually occurred. Kurosawa's unique storytelling and directing established what is known as the Rashomon effect, which refers to an instance when the same event is described in significantly different ways by different people who were involved. We all see the world differently. Even if we witness the same event, we don't all see it from the same lens and viewpoint. And that's okay. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us unique. The Rashomon effect teaches us that every viewpoint needs to be heard and considered as a valid view of the world, even though our own view may be vastly different. We have all had our own Rashomon effect moments each and every day. Perhaps not to the extent of the film. Nevertheless, we view the many aspects of life in our own unique and subjective ways. This is not always the easiest. Subjectivity often leads to intense arguments, division, even hatred. We often believe that our viewpoint of the world is the correct one and are unable to validate the opinions of those that we disagree with. It's my way or the highway. However, my way can be lonely. My way can be isolating. Whereas the highway is filled with diversity and with beauty. We are called to interact with those we share the highway with, to engage in conversation, to share our ideas and opinions with each other. This is not easy. We would rather stay in our own lane with those that we agree with. And many of us try to do just that. Choosing who to follow on social media and who to block. Choosing which TV networks to watch or news sources to read. We curate our own personal highways filled with those who think just like us. While the world may feel smaller than ever, we have built our own smaller worlds where we can block out views that we disagree with views that trigger and rattle us. As Adam Driver's character in the new Coppola film, Megalopolis, tells the world at the end of the film, so spoiler alert, because I know it just came out. He says, "We're in need of a great debate about the future, and everyone is invited. And yet, we have forgotten how to disagree with dignity, how to listen to viewpoints that are not our own. We have forgotten that without debate, we are stuck." Rav Kook, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi in the land of Israel, teaches us, "There are those who err thinking that world peace will not be built except by means of one form and points of view and qualities. Therefore, when they see students of Torah scholars inquiring wisdom in the knowledge of Torah, and by means of their searching the perspectives and approaches multiply, they believe that thus causes argument in the opposite of peace. Yet truthfully, this is not so, for the true peace cannot come into the world except by means of the value of peace of many faces. A peace of many faces means that all sides and approaches are seen, and it becomes clear how there is a place for all of them, each one according to its worth, its place, and its content. All of our voices and our opinions matter. When we open our hearts, our minds, and our souls to the other, we create peace in this world. The prophet Isaiah tells us to build up a highway, to clear the road, to remove all obstacles, make room for all of us. How do we do such a difficult task? How do we walk through the world with the mindset that disagreeing with one another does not have to create division, but it actually creates a path towards peace? Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, the former chief rabbi of Great Britain, taught, "In heaven there is truth. On earth there are truths. Each person knows something no one else does. The sages said, 'Who is wise?' The one who learns from all. The wisest is not one who knows themselves wiser than others. They are the one who knows all human beings have some share of the truth and are willing to learn from them. For none of us knows all the truth, and each of us knows some of it. We are called to both share our own truth and to listen to the opinions, views, and truths of the other. The path towards peace is discovered through these interactions with the other. How do we enter into these conversations without getting heated, without creating further division in the world and in our lives? There is a concept in our tradition known as machloket l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven. The rabbis taught that every dispute that is for the sake of heaven will in the end endure, but one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. When we debate with one another, it should be for the sake of peace and come from a place of empathy. Bartanura, no, not the Moscato that some of us might have had earlier, but the 15th century commentator on the Mishnah tells us that the people engaged in conflict will endure and will not be lost. Our ability to engage in discourse needs to come from a place of respect and love. One of the first pieces of Talmud I ever learned while in rabbinical school was about how we engage and discourse. We learn from the Talmud that for 3 years, the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel disagreed. Both sides believed that the law should follow their opinion. Ultimately, a divine voice came down from heaven and proclaimed, both Shammai and Hillel's opinions are the words of the living God. However, the law will go in accordance with Hillel. Why did the law follow Hillel's opinion? They were agreeable and forbearing. They would teach both their own statements and the statements of the house of Shammai. And not only that, but they prioritized the statements of the house of Shammai to their own statements. My class learned this piece of Talmud from our rabbinical school teacher, Rabbi Fenton, in order to understand that while in school, there will be plenty of moments where we disagree with our classmates and our teachers, but we must be open to listening and learning from those that we disagree with. We are asked to accept each other's opinion as valid and find comfort in the discomfort and the argument. And yet, we often shy away from exploring other worldviews. Too often, we act like the house of Shammai, teaching our own opinion and discrediting the opinion of the other. We spend so much time on social media, commenting on posts that we disagree with, trying to prove why our view is the only acceptable one. This often ends in the original poster shutting off the comments or even unfriending and unfollowing those we argued and disagreed with. Famous story in the Talmud teaches us that spending all of our effort attempting to sway the other side to agree with us is futile and only creates more division. One day, Rabbi Eliezer answered all possible answers in the world to support his opinion, but the rabbis did not accept explanations from him. Rabbi Eliezer asked for miracles to prove that his opinion is valid and that all other opinions are not. The miracles come, and yet the other rabbis refuse to accept his opinion as the only answer. Rabbi Eliezer then said to them, "If the law is in accordance with my opinion, heaven will prove it." Divine voice comes down from heaven and said, "Why are you differing with Rabbi Eliezer? As the law is in accordance with his opinion in every place that he expresses an opinion." Rabbi Yehoshua stood on his feet and he yelled back, "It is written, it is not in heaven." Miracles, divine voices don't provide us with the halachic answer. Only discourse and debate with each other leads to answers and leads to peace. We spend so much time arguing our side that we miss the forest for the trees. We miss seeing the humanity in those that we are arguing with. We become blinded by our own opinion that we close our hearts, our minds, and souls to the other viewpoints. Social media has only exacerbated this. We create our own bubbles, our own universes of like-minded friends and strangers. Roughly 2/3 of Americans get their news from social media. News shared by friends, news that is not always verified. And once we click that like button or that share button, the Facebook algorithm works its magic by providing us more articles and pages that we will agree with, and it rarely shows a link to a source that we will not. We are not hearing opinions that are outside of the bubble that we've constructed. we are limiting the way we think about what's happening in the world. Our current world climate is polarized. Regardless of which side we are on, each side paints the other as being unintelligent and uncaring. When we choose to live inside of our own bubbles, it takes away the fact that people have a reason for what they believe in. And it's important to understand why people think how they do, regardless of whether we agree with them or not. If we demonize those we don't agree with, we cannot work towards middle grounds where we can all move towards the betterment of the human condition. This is exactly what Rav Kook taught us when we disagree with each other. When we open to listening to other viewpoints, we have the ability to create peace in this world. How can bursting these bubbles that we have created lead to peace? It's all about how we choose to interact with those whose viewpoints don't align with our own. I teach a weekly Talmud class here at HAMAKOM every Friday, 10 a.m., open to all. In every class, there is a piece of Talmud that we learn that leads into some of the most incredible conversations I have ever had. And just last week, we studied such a beautiful piece of Talmud that answers this question. The Talmud invites us to see how the sages treated each other when they disagreed. Rabbi Oshaya says, "What is the meaning of the verse found in Zechariah? And I took for myself 2 staffs. The one I called graciousness, and the other I called binders. Graciousness, these are the Torah scholars in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, who are gracious to one another in discussions of law. They treat each other with honor and love. Binders, these are the Torah scholars in Babylonia, who injure each other in discussions of law. They speak harshly to each other when they disagree. The past number of years, it seems like we treat each other like the scholars in Babylonia, speaking harshly to each other when we disagree, stooping so low as to calling each other names, canceling those that we disagree with. And as the world becomes even more polarized, we are called to act as the scholars in Eretz Yisrael did, to argue with dignity, to listen to each other, to show empathy, to act with love and respect rather than hatred and contempt. As we enter the new year of 5785, we each have a choice on how we engage with our fellow human beings, both online and in the physical spaces. We can continue to mock each other with memes and angry comments, claiming any viewpoint but our own is wrong. How can we consider ourselves curious and empathize when we belittle those that we don't agree with? This year, we are called to burst those bubbles, to find comfort in the discomfort, to view the world through the many lenses rather than just our own. Our sages taught us that the one who sees multitudes of Israel recites, "Blessed who knows all secrets." Why is this the blessing when we see a room filled with our fellow Jews? We offer up this blessing because God sees a whole nation whose minds are unlike each other and whose faces are unlike each other. Rav Shlomo Eiger explained that we would never become exasperated or disturbed that someone's facial features are different than our own. We would not condemn or criticize someone for having different colored eyes or hair than we do. We implicitly recognize that everyone is created differently, and it is our difference that weave the wonderful tapestry of our interconnected lives. Similarly, we should recognize that everyone's opinions are the result of their being created differently and raised differently. Just as someone is entitled to look different, so too are they entitled to think differently and approach things differently without harsh disapproval or condemnation. We are all entitled to our own viewpoint, our own opinion. Our individual and our unique voices matter, and they need to be heard and accepted as valid. When we zoom out, we're able to see beyond our own subjectivity and be empathetic towards other viewpoints. When we finish our Amidah prayer and we recite the words, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, God, please bring peace. And we turn to the right, we turn to the left. Rabbi Menachem ben Zion Zaks explains that achieving peace and harmony means bowing towards those on the right of us and those on the left of us, not just straight ahead on our own path. Maintaining the capacity and the will to bow towards those on the right and the left of us religiously, politically, and in every other way is a prerequisite to the peace we claim we desperately seek and yearn for. This Rosh Hashanah, I want to bless us all with the ability to see the other fully, to open our hearts, our minds, and our souls to opposing viewpoints, to act as our sages in Eretz Yisrael did, to disagree with dignity, to disagree with love, to establish peace together, to carve out a path forward for all of us. May this year be a year of bursting our bubbles, of disagreeing with one another, not to convince the other side that their view is invalid and ours is the only way, but to disagree for the sake of heaven and to live the value of loving your neighbor as yourself. Shana Tova.